God is not making any more land. You will be surprised how that land is going to increase over the years. I mean, my grandfather bought land, I think, for $3 an acre.
Wow.
Now some of that land is selling for $18,000 an acre, and we're in a rural area. So
Wow.
buy as much land as you can. If you get an opportunity, purchase land.
That is
That's what I
amazing.
would do. That's what I would do.
Welcome to Singing Your Own Song, where purpose and passion meet under life's spotlight. In each captivating episode, we'll highlight the unique career journey of a special guest, where boundaries are pushed, dreams are realized, and purpose takes center stage. Get ready to be inspired, enlightened, and motivated as we uncover stories of those who have not only found their calling, but are living it every day. And now, your host, Carlton Burrows.
Well, hello, listening and viewing audience. I am super excited today because I get to bring a unique perspective to the podcast. I want to introduce Mr. Chris Muse. He is one of four brothers who are owners and managers of the Muse 3 family farms, or the Muse 3 farms. They are in Louisiana, and they have a farm at about 200 acres now. They have cows, turkeys, they have goats, a number of different animals, and actually more so than just harvesting the crops, doing what we typically see as a farm. They actually are, I think, central to the agricultural and kind of, I would say, natural resource focus that we have going on now. And I want to bring Chris Muse to the microphone and let him talk a little bit about the farm, about what they do and the focus that they have. So without further ado, welcome, Chris. How are you?
Hey, thanks, Carlton. I want to thank you for inviting me to your platform. It's always a pleasure speaking with you. I look forward to chatting with you today to talk to you about, Muse 3 Farm, my family, and what we're trying to do here in Greensburg, Louisiana.
Great. Well, we met, I'll start it. We kind of met at a conference, for those who don't know, and it was the, I think, Cooperative for Southern Land Ownership, or Southern Landowners. And it's an organization that is made up predominantly of Black farmers and landowners, right? With a
Right.
focus on trying to retain and maintain kind of the land. How do we, get the resources you need to farm? How do you get the resources that you need to pull together and cultivate, the output of that farm? Because farming is huge. I think one of the things we saw in that conference was farmers are first responders, right?
Right.
So maybe talk a little bit about your day-to-day. We'll get into your background, but talk about the day-to-day of the farming and maybe help people debunk some of the myths around farming. Everybody's not out there in overalls with
well, we do wear overalls. That's our farm uniform. We do wear
Okay.
overalls, but I tell people, we farming is a business. It's a business. That's our business right now. And on Muse 3 Farm, of those 206 acres, half of that is dedicated to timberland, and we
Okay.
planted trees and we nurse those trees, and we also do conservation, wildlife conservation on that portion of the land. And
Yes.
the other piece is dedicated to grazing. We graze, like you said, we have beef cattle. We don't have pigs, but we have beef cattle, we have
Okay.
goats, we have sheep. We have chickens, ducks, turkeys, animals. With animals come a responsibility, right? So,
Okay.
you have to make sure and ensure that your animals are healthy. So we wake up every morning, the first thing we do after we eat and say our prayers is we go out and we check on our animals. We make sure that they're okay. We are primarily a grass-fed operation for our cattle,
Okay.
but chickens, we make sure that they have fresh water, make sure they have enough feed. We go check on our goats. We're in the middle of kidding season right now, so we have lots of babies on the ground. We want to make sure that the moms are okay. We want to make sure the babies are healthy. So day to day life, and that's just the farming aspect. We're not even going to talk about the produce, the vegetable garden, because we're at that time of year now where we're planting our vegetables, getting ready to have fresh vegetables that we can also sell alongside our meat products at our local farmers markets, also online. So there's there's not a day that go by that we don't have things to do on the farm. You know, it's always something to do. It's just if we can't get it done today, we have tomorrow to complete that.
You know, and it's amazing. I think one of the things we're seeing, and I'm seeing it here a lot in Atlanta as well. People are moving out and getting out of the what we used to call the urban center, right? The metro Atlanta area, maybe just on the outskirts, getting some acreage and growing their own food. I think what we see in our culture is everything has been kind of moved to the microwave culture, where you want something fast, you want it quick, you want it tasting good, and you want it easy. And I think farming is different, right? Because I grew up, as we talked before, I grew up in the rural South as well. I was born in Philadelphia, but ended up spending most of my life in South Carolina, growing up with my grandparents. And they had a garden in the back. We had relatives who had a farm, and probably at least a couple times a month we would go out. And like you said, cows and different animals were out just kind of roaming and grazing. Everything we ate for the most part was fresh, man. The meats, the vegetables. What are you seeing in the, I would say, not just in the farming community, but just in general, in terms of people getting back to organic, getting back to natural foods?
And you make a great point, because you know it's amazing, because growing up, you know, all I knew was fresh food. You know, that's all we did. We very rarely had to go to the store to purchase anything. You know, maybe some salt or something, but pretty much everything we had came from the farm. If it didn't come from the farm, it came from the woods within the farms. You know, nuts, berries, trees, all of that stuff just grew natural. So growing up, we didn't really worry about where food came from. But as soon as I graduated and moved away, and when I came back home, even to the place that I grew up on, I began to notice that all of those wild fruit trees and nut trees no longer existed, you know. And then moving to the city, and after I had kids and working, you know, around, you started noticing more and more people became concerned about what they're putting in their bodies and what they're putting in their kids' bodies. So people begin to ask questions: where did this stuff come from? You know, and even though we grew up knowing where it's come from, it's still a lot of people don't know where their food is coming from. And it's not only in the big cities, Carl, and even in my rural town. Kids these days do not know where their food is coming from. But I do see that there is a push now to eat healthy, and consumers are willing to pay a higher premium if they know that they're truly eating healthier food. And that's what we do at Muse 3 Farm. We invite people, hey, come to the farm, come see how the animals are living, come see how the food is produced. See with your own eyes, and then you don't have to take my word, you know exactly what you're eating. So there is a movement now. I think it's much needed. We needed to get away from the fast food industry, because we know what that's doing to our health. So it's slow, but I think there is progress being made. I push everybody should have some type of gardening. You know, if it's just a bucket, raised bed, somebody should be able to grow any something at their home so that they can sustain it for themselves.
Man, I'm glad you say that, because I think so many times, especially as people of color, we run into health concerns. You know, I think if you haven't had a journey, then you've had a relative that's had a journey, typically, whether it be cholesterol, blood pressure, you know, those different things that come in. And if they're unchecked, man, they can really impact your quality of life. And I see that you guys do tours. You have people come out to the farm, and you also do kind of agricultural research work, right? Kind of leading the way around making sure that the soil quality is good and things like that are in place. What really got you into this, man? Because if I look at your background, you were like years at IBM as an executive project manager. I think you managed these big, you know, projects like IT projects, HR projects. So now, how did you make that transition from being this executive at IBM to now moving back into farming, which is your roots?
That's the story of Muse 3 Farm. You know, all of us are brothers. You know, we could not wait to get away from this farming life. Growing up, we said it had to be a better life out there. We really did not know what we had, so we couldn't wait. That was our motivation to go to college. to get a better job, to move away. And unfortunately, my small area, there's not a lot of opportunity other than farming in the area. So you had to move away. So I was always curious about computers and things. So I majored in computer science at Southern University. Right after I graduated, I had a job with IBM. I moved to Atlanta and I stayed there for 32 years. I did various positions, and when I retired, I was an executive project manager. So the corporate life was great to me. I raised two boys there. My wife, I met my wife there. So we had a great life there, but it was something that said I always knew I wanted to come back home.
Okay.
A family, wanted to be closer to family. And I wanted to do something with the environment. And what I thought I could do is most of the people that I know here are still farming. They have small farms. And we wanted to say, well, how can we help those people out? And one of the best things we could do is say, okay, well, we're going to reinstitute our farm. And, it costs money to farm. That's first off, especially starting from scratch and you don't have an inheritance. So, you have to purchase everything. But we said, as we do this, let's educate others. Let's educate those farmers that's been doing it for a while. And all of the stories we heard about how farmers and working with the government, how we been skeptical of that. So we wanted to say, okay, let's see if we could be a mediator. We could be a bridge between USDA and these farmers. So we're going to go out and we're going to apply for these programs. And then what we'll do is we'll come back now and we'll go out to our farmers, talk with the farmers and see what we could do to help them apply for those programs. So they said, okay, well, let's do demonstration tours on our farm. Let's do tours for kids as well, because a lot of kids are not going into agriculture anymore. They don't understand what it takes to be farming. And let's do also some technical assessments so that we can help other farmers achieve what we're achieving. Because a lot of folks have been farming all their lives. We left and came back, but we want to use those skills. So as a project manager, I work with a lot of different people. I don't take no for an answer easily, and I can work through things. And so once we can figure that out, I think my goal is now to take that information and bring it back and disseminate it around the farmers that have been skeptical. So, we've gotten farmers who had basically stopped going into those USDA offices, going back into those offices. We've got farmers getting contracts now that said no, they didn't want anything to do with it. So when I wake up in the morning, it's not just the beauty of being able to look out and see the animals on the farm, but it's also knowing that we are helping other people as well. So it's a good feeling. It's a good feeling. And the believe it or not, the switch from corporate to farming requires a lot of project management too. You got scheduling you have to do, you have time tracking, you have issue management, you have risk management, you have supply constraints. So a lot of those skills apply directly to what we're doing on the farm.
Man, I'm glad you mentioned that, right? Because I met you and your brother at the conference. And just so you know, usually I'll give guests an advance notice of what I'm going to ask. So one thing I will tell you now, and let you be mulling over it because we'll get to it a little later, is think about your journey, right? And your journey, the title of the podcast is Singing Your Own Song. Think about a song. It could be a real song or something that you make up that describes your journey. I kind of have a couple in mind, but I'm not going to say it. I want to let you come up with it. But what I was saying is I met you and your brother. Your brother, Burnell, I think he was like 36 years in the USDA. So he worked with Natural Resources Conservation Service. So I think he has that background in natural resources and, kind of the environment. You had the project management. There are two other brothers that I didn't get to meet.
Right.
So maybe talk about how your family or your brothers, the backgrounds rounded off your executive team to be able to drive this business. Like you said, it's a family business.
Right. So like I say, so fortunately we had four of us that went away, but two of them, Burnell and Mitty, were agriculture graduates. Their degrees was in plant soil science. So they had the foundation. Burnell working with NRCS. Mitty went to Texas. He worked a while with NRCS, and then he went on to work with the Texas Railroad Commission. So, he was out inspecting coal mines, salt mines, and those types of things. So he had that background as well. My older brother, Alan, he was an officer in the Marines before he went and worked for General Motors. He did 47 years at General Motors as a plant supervisor. So, on the assembly line, making sure that those cars come together. So we were able to take each of our unique skills to bring it together to help us out with farming. So, when we're talking, soil health, soil quality, I look to Burnell and Mitty because that's what they are doing. When we're talking about, how do we grow the business to the next level? How many cattle we need? If we need to deliver 1,000 pounds of beef this month, 5,000 pounds of beef next month, Alan and I come into the play to help with that. The other thing, with Alan being the oldest, he probably did more of the detail farming back in the day, when we was doing the grit work, right? But it's in his heart. He loves planning. He loves doing that. So he wakes up every morning. If he could be out in the field with a hoe in his hand, looking at vegetables and things, he would do that all day long. So we let him do the master gardener aspect of that as well. And we still learn, like you mentioned. We also go to conferences. We try to go attend as many conferences as possible to understand, what's the latest technology, what's new, what other people are doing, because we don't have all of the answers. And if we can take something from what some other farm is doing, is implemented, we want to bring that back as well. So it's still key to make sure you're attending these conferences, networking with other farmers, understanding the issues and the trials and tribulations to bring that back as well. So we're fortunate to have 4 of us that we're able to collaborate with, to talk through things, to figure out, how we can attack an issue or an assignment, a particular field day that someone has asked us to do. We work closely together with that, and we work closely with USDA, with universities. Don't forget about your local ag universities. We work closely with those guys as well. Also, the other nonprofit organizations that's been doing this stuff much longer than we have been doing it. Even though we grew up farming has changed a good bit since we grew up. We're trying to take some of it back to those days, but because we've messed up some things along the way, and we're trying to get back to some of those things that we had in the past. But a lot of that still requires, being diligent, working, understanding, having an open mind. Urban farming is coming up. Now we're meeting a lot of people in the cities. They've got their whole backyards, farming. Hey, that works too. So we can do that. We can take that and adapt that to even the rural life, where there's people that only have like a quarter of an acre. Hey, you can still farm. So we're learning. And as we learn, I think what we've been able to do is try to share that with others. We're not going to hold anything back. We're at the stage of our career that we want to make sure that we get the word out. And that's why people like you with this podcast gives us an opportunity to talk directly to anybody that's want to listen and understand how we've been able to do it.
Well, Chris, and you touched on something, man. You mentioned the agricultural universities. I think your brother went to Southern University. I know NCA&T. We got a few universities that have that agriculture or, agriculture in their title. Can you speak a little bit to how maybe you partner with them to try to get younger people into farming? Because I would imagine getting, teenagers or 20-somethings to go into farming could be a potential challenge. I mean, can you maybe speak to that a little bit?
Yeah. And, fortunately for us, my brothers, all of us are graduates of Southern University. We had 2 that was graduate of the Ag Center. And in my location, we're in close proximity to 2 of the best ag centers in the state of Louisiana. We have Southern University, our HBCU, but we also have Louisiana State University too. So we work closely with both of those. But Southern University is in our heart because we that's where we graduated from. Actually, when Burnell retired from NRCS, he actually went to work as an extension agent for Southern University. And my son actually graduated from agriculture from Southern University, and he's now an extension agent for Southern University. So wow. I would say if you have an agriculture university in your area, work with them. I mean, that's their mission, right? They want to help you out, help us out. So anything we do on the farm, I knew we have their backing. They're going to be there. If we're doing a field day and I need expertise, they're going to be there. If we're doing just a general meeting, they're going to be there. So those guys have the expertise to help us out. What I try to tell farmers, make sure you're taking advantage of what they're providing. You know, they've come out to the farm and they've brought their RV and they've done training and education directly on the farm. And
Wow.
we utilize that. I don't think there's any day that really goes by, any other day that I'm not talking with someone from the agriculture center.
Okay. So and so how would you, just from your perspective, being someone who grew up in it, but also understanding that there are people who didn't grow up in farming, and people like my son, for instance, he grew up in Atlanta, and yes,
Mhm.
we're in the suburbs, but still, farming is almost I would say a foreign thing to him. I mean, yeah, I take him to the land that we have back in South Carolina from time to time. But how do you guys go about getting young people who may not have come up in that environment into it and get them excited about farming as a career,
Forward.
not
Yeah.
just as, a
Yeah. Right.
sideline?
Right. And I'm sort of like you, Carter, because even my two sons, they graduated, they grew up in Atlanta too, right? So
Yeah.
they didn't know anything about farming either. So to get one of them to go into agriculture, it was interesting. And the way I approached it was again, the Southern University had programs for high school students. They had a
Okay.
couple of programs, like Bayou is one of the programs they had. I think JAGAD. So they had programs set up that for high school students. And Southern's program was free of charge. I mean, the kids
Oh,
would
wow.
stay 3 weeks on campus free of charge. So that was almost a no-brainer.
Yeah.
So, so I signed my kid up for that, and that's how he got involved. Now back here, what I'm doing is you have to go out and reach them.
Okay.
We invite kids almost weekly to come to the farm to show them, because they have to see it. They eat every day. They go to the store, but they don't know. So you bring them to the farm. You walk with them at their pace. You don't rush them through. You show them things. You explain to them. You're talking. You listen to them. Then we follow that up with career days. We're going to have a career day next month for the juniors and seniors uh, at our local school system to
Yeah.
talk about careers in agriculture. So we're going to bring down representatives from the various USDA branches. We're going to bring down representatives from the ag colleges. We're going to bring kids, college kids down that's
Okay.
majoring in agriculture down to talk to these kids to help out as well. The other thing we do, because we also work closely with the elementary and high school systems, we have 4-H, we have
Yeah.
FFA, which is Future Farmers of America programs. So we allow those kids to use some of the animals from our farm in order to participate in livestock shows, because a lot of these kids don't have the means to have animals at their homes. They either don't have the land or they don't have the animals. We have those, so we invite kids to come by. We let them work and train. We can then, if we get them on the farm, we can talk to
Yeah.
them about agriculture,
Yeah.
and that's a way that we've been able to reach out to them as well. But
Nice.
and send them home with something. If they come and when we do a grow a row to share. Well, we always
Okay.
give a kid a plant or something to take home and say, okay, take this plant home and plant it. So give them
Nice.
something
Nice.
that they can also use to sell. Let them grow something. Once they start growing something, they're gonna catch the fever.
Nice. Nice. Now, so I'm gonna change gears a little bit. You mentioned four brothers of you guys that have been working on the farm. My wife is part of a large family too. There are 8 of them, and they were in a family business, that their father, and then before that, grandfather had started. And I know firsthand that you can have difference of opinions, difference of temperaments, How do you guys manage through that? Give like the good, bad, and the ugly of working with your brothers in a business, man.
Well, like I say, I worked for IBM for 32 years, and when you go into any project, when you're dealing with customers, you're gonna have difference of opinions on some things. So you're gonna have to be able to do some type of you're gonna have to come together. You're gonna have to do some type of analysis and say, hey, this is this. Brothers, it's interesting. And the thing that I can't really understand because when we grew up, we was four of us to a bed. This is actually seven brothers, so we slept four to a bed. Sometimes. So we did this, and now that we've reached this age, we can't communicate and talk to each other. But it takes something. I think even if you go in a business partnership, whether it's family, your friends, someone else, there's gonna inevitably be conflict, right?
Yes.
And so I think that the way we work through it is we all know our mission. Yeah. We all agreed to come back. We talk through things. Do I agree with everything, every decision? No. But if those three say yay and I say no, I'm on board with the decision. And that's how they've been. If they don't agree with something, they're on board. If consensus has to rule out. You cannot get upset if you don't get everything your way. And that's just life, I think, and we've been able to utilize that, as we make decisions. We look at who has the strength and weaknesses. Yeah. Like I said, if we're talking soil health, we're deferring to Burnell and Mitty, right? Okay. If we're talking about, how many cattle we may need to purchase, to make sure we have enough supply, Alan and myself, we may take the lead on that. If we're looking for grants, I'm the one that's doing that. So we have individual roles and responsibilities, but at the end of the day, you just have to sit down and talk. You have to be honest with each other. Because if you don't like something, don't hold it in, share it, say why you don't like it. And sometimes that person may change us. Say, okay, we didn't think about that. So you just have to communicate. And as family, and it's been interesting. I never really paid attention to it until we started the farm, and I hear a lot of comments from people that says how they admire what we're doing. And I said, I grew up with these guys all our life. We've been in the struggle since day one. We were poor and we made it. So then I said, well, it must be something to it. And so as part of our tours, we try to talk about us, our relationship, and how we're been able to do things. Because when we moved back to our hometown, it's not like we're scattered around. We're all like right next to each other now. So when we came back, we moved our houses. We look out, like I said, I see cattle, I see goats, I see sheep, and I see my brothers here. We're all right here together.
But you know what? And you just hit on such a good point, man. And my wife and I and friends in our church and our community, we've had this conversation so many times. The fact that, you grew up in like a village. I grew up where my friends and we all lived on the same street. And yeah, you had friends that were in different little cities, but you all go to school together, you hang out together. And then I think as people kind of dispersed more, we came to Atlanta, other guys I grew up with, some stayed in South Carolina, some moved to New York, some moved to DC. So what you find is that you are in these little areas where you're not surrounded by your village, man. Right. And what you just talked about is, you have a village around you where, yeah, you guys are going to fight. Yeah, you're going to disagree. But at the end of the day, it's almost like that's your extended family. Is that another thing that brought you back to the farm? The fact that you guys could be together like that?
Yeah. Most definitely, because family, if family has to mean something. If family doesn't mean something to you, then that's an issue there that you need to figure out. But that was one of the things, because we did grow up so closely. I mean, we were a tight-knit family. It was 10 of us, so we grew up very close. We helped each other. It was a struggle, My dad was a farmer, and back then he wasn't making a lot for me, but we made it work. We never went to bed hungry. I put it that way, We may be struggling we didn't have everything, but we never went to bed hungry. So we had that within us, and we knew coming back, and I think we wanted to sort of pay homage to him.
Okay.
because we knew what he had gone through in his days of farming, how he struggled with it. So I think we wanted to prove to him and my
Yeah.
grandfather that, yeah, this could work. This was their goal, their
Wow.
objectives, and we could make it work. We could come back, uh, put our heads together, and we can make farming be profitable, and we can make everybody feel good. Because back in the day, my mom, anybody that needed something, if you needed vegetables, she gave them to you. So we wanted to make sure that we help fulfill that as well. So with the things we're doing, we're thinking directly correlates to what they were trying to do, and we wanted to show them that we could take it and advance what they had given us to the next level. And it's something I think, you have to kind of have a passion for, and you have to like. We like farming. If you don't like farming, farming is not for you. But
Absolutely.
each of us like doing what we're doing, so that helps out as well. And we get to do that every morning now. I wake up every morning, I think about, okay, what we're going to do today. But I know I'm doing it for the family, and that makes it very much worthwhile to do those things. So, interested, I said, when I retire, I wasn't going to be sitting on Zoom calls or any of that stuff. I'm probably on more Zoom calls now than I was with IBM, doing project management and grants and those things.
Yeah.
But I'm loving it, because it's for the farm. It's for the advancement of the farm.
And I think you hit on it, man. I think some of the things that we kind of grew up in and steeped in, you run away from it because you're like, oh, you want the glitz and the glamour of the big corporate world, et cetera. But then you ended up coming back home, right? And I think one of the things you also touched on is, your grandfather and your father were kind of the patriarchs of the family. I think we talked a little bit earlier. Your grandfather was able back then to acquire, a couple hundred acres. And one of the things, and you were with me in the conference, we're noticing is that those acres are being whittled away, right? We have, a fraction of the land ownership within, in particular, the Black community that we had, back, 50 years ago, which seems almost counterintuitive. You would think the opposite. Can you talk a little bit about that? About, number one, how your grandfather was able to acquire that land, but then also how you guys have been able to maintain it and maybe some of the struggles that you went through.
Yeah. Because, right now, I'd say Black farmers, we only make up 2% of all of the farmers in the U.S. now. And that's just given my background, where I came from, where everybody was farming. That's all I knew was Black farmers, so we have a lot of ground to make up. And what amazes me even more is how was my grandfather able to accomplish what he did, given his limited resources. He never knew how to read. He couldn't write. All I ever knew he did was farm.
Wow.
But he was able to acquire 350 acres with what his knowledge was. And just, let's face it, I mean, me and my brothers, we all went off and worked in corporate world, and we only have 206 acres. So we have not been able to achieve what he had done, given our means. So, we talk about it, and we ask ourselves, how was he able to do that? And I knew, land was cheaper back then, but he wasn't making a lot of money. But I think he knew the value of land, and he had the perseverance to do that. One of the things our brothers, when we talk about, was when we left and when we graduated from college, we should have been acquiring land since day one. We waited later in life to start acquiring these 206 acres.
Okay.
We were buying cars, houses, that stuff, right? But we said, we should have been purchasing land, but it was too late for us because we can't go back in time. But we can tell our kids, and we can tell others to do it, because that's the key. The land and land retention. We had people I knew back in the day, through some government agencies, they received some land, 40 acres, and that land is now gone. When those people died off, for various reasons, we lost that land. And I think that's been one of the biggest issues for our Black community in wealth, is because we gave away our land. We got that one-time benefit of the money. The money is gone, and we don't have the land, and the land is just steadily increasing in value now, right? And we don't have that. And the land that we do have, it's in a state where nobody can use the land. You know, it's so tied up that nobody has the authority to make decisions on that land. So we're not being able to make the land work for us. You know, we're not being able to make money off that land. So that's one of the things we've been trying to do in our areas, work with, like to say, the Southern Federation of Cooperatives, the Ag Centers, to talk about some kind of mediation. What can we do to get families to at least clear up the land where that you can use the land, you can make that land make money for you. And that's a tough sell. That's a tough sell. You know, for all of my life, my family, you know, most of the time they were scared of death, and they didn't want to think about after death, you know, what to do. They just assumed that family would do the right thing. That's a bad assumption, you know.
Wow.
You have to have plans laid out to say specifically what you want to do with it. Because even my two boys, there's no guarantee the right thing is to leave my inheritance 50-50. You know, one may love the land, the other one may not love the land. So if one don't love the land, why would I leave him 50% of the land or something he don't love? So that's things you have to think about when you're thinking about inheritance and what to do to make sure that the legacy lives on. And you have to have that discussion. We, in my household, we didn't talk a lot growing up about, you know, the value of land and what we need to do to keep this land in the family. My parents would just said, keep it in the family. You guys do what you needed to do. But we didn't really put concrete rules and procedures in place. My mom, dad never had a will, you know.
Okay.
So that was part of the issue as well. Now, my dad, he didn't have a lot of land. He farmed his daddy's land.
Okay.
And the good news, our grandfather land is still in the family. Right. It's not all with us, it's with cousins, but we have it all intact. And we've talked with our cousins to say, hey, if you're ever going to sell that land, we want first right of refusal to purchase that land, because I don't want anybody else to have my grandfather's land.
And I think one of the things you touched on was the fact that, you know, it's not seen as sexy to have a farm now, have land. It's, you know, people want to have the house, the cars, the Ferraris, the mansion. But when you look at, you know, having that land that's going to steadily appreciate in value, that's going to allow you to build something and do farming. And I think you guys actually, like you said, you do more with your farms. You get, you know, more revenue generation from your farms from just the produce and the animals, right? You actually have, you know, things like conservation land, and you get grant resources. Can you talk a little bit about that, about the other sources of revenue from the land?
Yes, that's one of the things we try to tell people. Like, we got the timberland and our grazing land. You know, we had our USDA equip contracts to help us improve that land. We have a conservation stewardship program on both the timberland and our grazing land, and that pays us an annual payment each year for 5 years.
Wow.
To just have that land and to do improvements on that land. And a lot of the stuff is simple. It's things that we were doing anyhow. For example, on our grazing land, we rotate, we move around our hay bales. We don't put them all in the same place. We were doing that anyhow. So we're getting funding to keep that practice going. We planted some milkweed for butterflies to bring back pollinators. That's stuff we needed to do anyhow because of our produce and our gardens. We needed butterflies, we needed bees. So those was things that that we needed to do, and most farmers in the area are doing it as well. So you may as well get paid for it as well.
Absolutely.
So, you know, that, you know, and then just, you know, by having the land, the tours, the agritourism, now we can bring people in, and agritourism just taking off. I didn't realize how much feedback we would get from people. I can tell you, Carlton, we have people drive up every day, strangers that just says, hey, can I see the property? You know,
oh, wow.
Can I sit out here? You know, we've had churches come and they've done overnight events out in our fields, you know, where the cattle had roamed the day before. Now they're out there and they're setting up their tents and they're doing things. So it's something about the land that people has an attachment, right? That is something about when you're out here, some of your problems seems to go away. You know, you can deal with things, you can breathe. You know, it's fresh air. you do see birds, you see animals, and it does something to the body. And that's also a revenue producer for the farm. So just agritourism. We also started our private beef label, where not only do we just raise cattle, but we sell our beef at farmers markets. We sell it online. We're selling it to our school systems now. That was one of my goals. I wanted to do local farm to school stuff. I wanted to make sure why our kids are not eating fresh produce grown in their area. So this year we was able to do that in our parish school system and a local school system as well. So those are things you can do with farming to make money. Farming is challenges, right? We had a drought last year, so your feed goes up, fertilizer, all your expenses goes up. So you have to have other options and means of making money. If not, then you're going to say, okay, I can't do this. Farming is not for me. I can't make money for me.
Yeah, and you guys just had, I think we were talking about it, a storm where the power went down, the internet went down. You had tornadoes hitting. I mean, and that's part for the course. It's going to happen anyway, but it hits you more when your livelihood is farming, right?
Yeah, power goes out and you got like 4 freezers full of meat. You said, okay, what's going to happen here? Now, fortunately for me, I had a generator. That was one thing my wife said, if we're going to move back to the country, I need to have a generator in my house because I'm not going to be without power. So that was a good move, but things do happen. A quick one. My first ground beef order was in 2001. I had 200 pounds I had sold. The day I picked up my meat from the slaughterhouse, the next day, Hurricane Ida came through. We were out power for 12 days. The customer that purchased my ground beef, they were out power. So they had basically given away everything in their warehouse. Wow. So I was reaching a point where what I'm going to do with this order here, Yeah. And again, I reached out to my university. They said, hey, we have power. We have a meat lab. We have cold storage. Bring the meat here. And they kept that meat for 14 days for me. So
wow.
So you utilize your resources. There are resources out there that will help you, because in farming, you need every assistance you can get.
Yeah. So we've talked a little bit about the family dynamic and being in the business. One of the things I would ask, and I asked all my guests this, in singing your own song, yours is you chose to go back into farming, the family business. Can you tell me about a mentor, whether they know they're a mentor or even if they don't know, someone who's been an example or a mentor or like a beacon for you during your journey?
Well, there's a lot of people I look at, but it was a guy in Mississippi, and I'm probably gonna get his name right, but Fred, we would go to his field days.
Okay.
And I would see what he was doing, and how he had built things up, And he would ask every field day, how many farmers have a CSP contract? And no hands would go up. And he would ask, how many has an EQIP contract? And no hands would go up. But he says, I've been telling you guys this for years, and you still don't have it. So that was my key that says, okay, he's right, we have to do something about it. So based on what he was doing, I said, okay, when I move back, I'm going to have one, and I'm going to make sure other farmers have one, because I'm going to go out to their farms and I'm going to work with them. And if I have to walk them into there, I would do that, So that one, and then just a lot of people I met, when we first got into it, when I tried to get grants to do like technical assistant work, they told us we was either too small or we was too new. And I said, okay, all right. Well, I said, well, let me go and see who are some of the players out here. And I networked with those guys, and I worked with those guys. So, when you look at the organizations like SARE, FACT, NCAT, RAFI, I wanted to work with those guys to understand what they was doing, because I wanted to make sure people knew what we were doing. So you have to be able to, work with other people, don't be afraid, be able to accept constructive criticisms, because if you ever written a grant and you read some of the feedback that comes back from those grants, some of it can be brutal, but you need that to help you get to the next level.
Yeah. Now you hit on some things, but let me just ask you, point out what has been the most difficult part. Maybe give me an example of something that was the biggest challenge in terms of making the transition to getting into farming or getting the farm off the ground, to the point where it is now.
Well, the big, farming, first thing, it requires land.
Yeah.
You have to have land. And we knew when I talked to my brothers that we were going to come back. Well, we didn't have it. We had 1 acre. That's what my dad had.
Okay.
So we needed land. We looked around. I figured I could go to my bank and just get them to finance land. And I figured out, a lot of these commercial banks do not finance land.
Wow.
We went to USDA to get a loan to finance our land. They said, our credit was too good, but they did send us to a special financing group that specialized in land purchasing and acquisition and loaning.
Okay.
And that once we met those people, we were able to move forward because now we could purchase land, and we purchased blocks and blocks at a time. So that was a challenge.
Okay.
Farming, land, then it comes, you got to have the animals, you have to have the equipment, the cost of tractors, right? We bought our first tractor. We thought we had a great tractor. It was like 65 horsepower. We figured out sooner or later that was not enough horsepower for the farm we needed to do. So we've been spending a lot of money on this farm, so you're going to spend a lot of money to get this farm operational. So that's that piece there. So, you're either going to have access to capital, you have to do what we did, where we used the money that we should have been using to go on trips and enjoying the rest of the world. We took that money and we put it together to purchase some of these things. That was the biggest challenge to me in farming. And I'm honest with people. I'm telling especially cattle. Louisiana, you need 2 acres per cow.
Oh, wow.
2 acres. So you know what that takes. And then, then you have to have the grass, and you have to have, good grass, and then you're going to have hay in the winter, or you have to plant ryegrass in the winter. So there are expenses with that. And I try to be upfront with people about that. And then I also tell them you have the small ruminants. Maybe look at sheep and goats, because what I'm finding out, you can get just as much profit selling sheep and goats as you can raising cattle. So just learning those little tidbits along the way also, helps out. And you have to be patient. It's not going to happen overnight. You have to have at least a 5-year plan or a 10-year plan to make sure that you can get profitable in farming.
You touched on it, man. Farming is one of those few professions where patience is not necessarily optional. It's mandatory, right? Because when you plant, there's a season to plant and there's a season to sow, and you can't accelerate that. You probably can accelerate it to a degree, but not beyond a certain point, right?
Yeah. Not they've got some things you can do, but there's some things you just out of your control. The reason why when we moved back to Louisiana is known for rain and wet. We get a lot of water here, so grass normally just grows in the summer. Last year we had a 5-month drought, so that impacted not only our summer grass, that impacted the ability to acquire hay, to purchase hay. So just that one event, can change the whole dynamics, and that's farming. You never know really what you're going to get. You can get one cold snap that kills your whole crop, but that's the way it's been.
You spoke to the meditative piece, and I think you just touched on it again in a different way. The fact that people just come down to the farm just to be in nature, man, to think, to feel connected with the universe, with God, and I think that's something that maybe we've gotten a little bit away from as well, man. When we get into these world, I mean, an example is, we wake up every morning, we start by getting up, like you say your prayers. My son gets up, we're all getting ready for work, school. He goes off to school, we head to our respective work. He comes in, sometimes, I used to pick him up. Sometimes he comes in, I could hear him because I work from home some. But if not, I'm in meetings, my wife's in meetings. 6 o'clock, he goes to his after school stuff. 7 o'clock, we're doing volunteer church work. By the time we all get home, it could be 8, 9 o'clock. You eat, and then you end up going to bed at 11, or sometimes with me running my business, I may be up till 2 in the morning and start again, rinse and repeat. That's a lot, man. And I think people are looking for that respite almost, that, the getaway. Do you find people, for you at least, does this give you a little bit of that? And do you find that more people are looking for that?
Yeah. Well, for me, definitely, because I noticed it right away. I mean, the corporate environment is stressful,
Yeah.
It's just stressful. Then you throw in Atlanta with the traffic, you throw that on top of it. So people are just stressed out these days. So for me, moving back here to this rural life, things slowed down dramatically for me, but it's more peaceful, and I can feel it, and I can measure it, because health wise, when I look at like things like the blood pressure, your sugar levels,
Yeah.
it's been much better since I moved back here than when I was doing the corporate work. And I hear it from people that comes out that's working. I hear it from a lot of believe it or not, veterans. They say, they just like a safe place. They'll come out, they'll cast their rod in the pond. They just say, and then sometimes they're out there for hours, and they said they just needed that break to be able to get back to doing what they do. And I think that's part of why a lot of people go into farming, because just when you put something in the ground and you see it come up, and then you see a produce on it that you can harvest and you can bring in and you can cook it, it does something to you, right? It does something to you.
Wow.
And we do that every day, every day. So it's been relaxing to, I know, me, my brothers, our family, because we left some of our kids to come back here, but we have been enjoying it. It's a pleasure, and we try to share our farm with as many people that want to come by. We don't turn away anybody.
Man, that's powerful. So let me ask you this, and I know I mentioned it a little bit earlier to give you a chance to think about it. So if you had to give a song that describes your journey, whether it's your personal journey or your farm's journey, what would that song be?
I would probably say "Heal the World."
Really? I love it.
Make it
Okay.
a better place, because one of the things that I'm disappointed, like I say, growing up, this farm and these woods sustained us. Well, my daddy didn't have a lot of money, but we never went hungry. I could go out into the woods, and we could find fruit trees, nut trees. We could drink out of the streams. We did that as kids, and as we would go out as kids, as groups, and we would just go out on adventures. Those woods was our universe. I when I left, I came back and I brought my kids back, and I was going to give them that same experience, And we went out in the woods. We could not find anything out there. You were starved if you were out in these woods these days.
Wow.
And I wondered to myself, that had been like 18 years. What happened in 18 years that we lost all of those things? That was just stuff when I grew up, we didn't even think about. If we wanted something to eat, just go in the woods. We could find it. We don't have that anymore. I want to bring that back to our farm so that when my sons bring their kids back or their grandkids, there will be something left. I don't want to take for granted that they're going to be able to come back and they're going to be able to grow stuff or get fruit, because it wasn't there for them when I came back. So we need to heal the world, and that's part of what I want to do. If we're going to leave a legacy here on Muse 3 Farm, we may as well leave something that's worth coming back from. So we want to make sure that our farm stays sustainable. We dropped the ball somewhere. We dropped the ball, but now I have an opportunity, at least for my 206 acres, to make a difference.
Wow, that's amazing, man. And I think you're right. I mean, there's been cycles and there's been balls dropped, but you're doing the right thing, man. You guys are doing it. I'm excited to see what's happening in the farming space, but also getting back to nature. You have any, kind of as we close, do you have any advice for younger people or for your younger self? If you were talking to your younger self now and you know what you know now, what would you share that maybe is not easily gleaned by, the internet or books or something like that?
Like I said, we'll start with Kids, number one,
Yes.
purchase as much land as you can.
Okay.
Start
Okay.
with purchasing land. You know, if you can't do anything else, purchase land. Get as much land. I don't care where it's at. Get it,
Okay.
because God is not making any more land. You will be surprised how that land is going to increase over the years. I mean, my grandfather bought land, I think, for $3 an acre.
Wow.
Now some of that land is selling for $18,000 an acre, and we're in a rural area. So
Wow.
buy as much land as you can. If you get an opportunity, purchase land. That's what I would do. That's what I would do.
And that rate of return is huge. And if I think about $3 versus 18,000,
Yeah.
you're not gonna get that on anything else, right?
exactly. So do that, kids. Take your money. You know, I know you guys buy Bitcoins and that stuff. Purchase land. Purchase land.
I appreciate it. Now, to wrap up, man, do you want to tell the people how to get in touch with you, how to reach your farm, if they want to come out for a tour or whatever? Maybe share with the audience.
So the easiest way, if you want to reach out, you can go to our website. It's www.muse3farm.com. That's www.muse, the number 3 farm, farm.com, and you would see there's a tourism page on there. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram. It's at Muse3 Farm, MUSE3 Farm. Or you can just call me. You can call. You can reach out at muse3farm@gmail.com. Just give me a call if you need it, and we can book something for you. If you're just in the area, if you're ever in Greensburg, Louisiana, and you're stopping through, come by and check us out at the farm. We also sell products online, and we also sell locally at our farmers market each week. So come get some great fresh ground beef.
That's it. And I'll put your information from Muse3 Farm in the notes for the podcast. But man, I really appreciate this, Chris. This is amazing. Any words that you want to close out with, man, as we take it home?
I just say I want to appreciate the opportunity. And any farmers out there, I know we've had issues, but together, if we come together as a group and we work together, we can overcome anything. We've been doing it all our lives, so I know we can do it. So keep up the hope. I know there's been a lot of issues, but we're going to make this work for us. Well,
great. Well, Chris, thank you for coming, man. Thanks for joining. And to the audience, appreciate you guys tuning in. This is great information. Keep coming and tell all your friends about us. And for now, tuning out from Carlton Burroughs, and continue to sing your own song.
Thank you for tuning in to this installment of Singing Your Own Song. We hope you enjoyed today's adventure and that it uncovered valuable insights on living a purpose-driven life. Don't forget to subscribe, follow us, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. Your feedback fuels our mission to bring you more compelling stories and lessons from individuals who are singing their own song and redefining success on their own terms. We invite you to connect to Carlton Burroughs on social media and visit us at singingyourown.song.com to stay updated on upcoming episodes, behind-the-scenes content, and to join our vibrant community of purpose-driven individuals.